What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am an almost fully healthy Dan Favale coming at you with my certified fantabulous clean jerking extraordinaire co-host Grant Hughes. That sounds a little bit more masturbatory than I
That
thought.
sounds bad.
Yeah, well, clean and jerk is a weightlifting move for that is very popular in CrossFit for anyone who might not know. So that's what I was referring to. We are here to spread, I guess we could call it holiday cheer, but we did, problems, questions we have about every team in the league last week. Now we're going to focus on optimistic observations. One reason we're optimistic about every team, splitting it into the East and West. The Western Conference is up first, which means that it will be Grant's show because he is the West last time since I had it. This time since I had it last time. Usual reminders before we get started. Please remember to subscribe to us. Hit that sub button on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple and Spotify. Ratings and reviews on both Apple and Spotify help us out a bunch. Follow us on the socials. The links to those are in the podcast and YouTube description. Join our Discord. Great convos happening every single day in there. The Discord link is in the podcast and YouTube description. You can support the show by purchasing merch. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube description. And if you've done all those things, please tell people about us. Word of mouth recommendations go a long way as we continue to build the community. And as always, Grant and I appreciate every single one of you, the audience, the community. We just enjoy it all. So thank you. Grant, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing well. I am also healthy. I was not unhealthy before, but since we're talking about our health, I thought I would throw that in there.
You're not only are you healthy, but you're rubbing it in, dyeing people's faces how healthy you are, apparently.
I want to say that I'm glad we get to talk about positive things this week because pointing out problems, as necessary as it is, which we did last time we had a conversation, it can wear on you a little bit. And even putting together stuff, if you're writing things like that, it just feels like you're nitpicking all the time. So this is an appropriately positive holiday entry into the holiday season, I think, because we're going to skew optimistic. We're going to skew towards things we like, things that have excited us or interested us or just been, good vibe producing so far through the season. I'm excited to do that today.
I will say I shared this information in Discord. I'm not sure if you saw it, but so we wrote the one problem every NBA team didn't see coming and repurposed it as a podcast. Kenny Beecham on his YouTube channel also repurposed that article as a video. He just beat us in views by about 250,000.
Yeah. So like
pretty close.
Several 10,000x, give or take.
It did just a little bit better than ours. I don't know what went into that, but so people seem to enjoy his reactions to the stuff that we wrote.
I mean, no shade at him at all.
His work ethic is absurd.
That is an indication of the industry. There's your industry in a nutshell.
Honestly, if people want to super peek behind the curtain, it's always touch and go when we're doing the every team projects. I don't look at traffic anymore. But there's probably a good chance that his video did more views than even the article did, which is being disseminated and programmed in the Bleacher Report app to like an audience in the tens of millions, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I don't have any doubt. I haven't looked at the numbers either, but I would not. My expectation would be that you're right about that.
Wow, yeah. I'm looking at it right now. I decided to bite the bullet and look. Our expectations were correct. Let's just leave it at that. So
you know what?
What's that?
Not this time though, because this one we're gonna do numbers on this one.
Everyone make this go viral. Share it, like it, comment. I don't know what it takes to go viral on YouTube with full length podcasts. So Eastern Conference, we're gonna go in alphabetical order. Always a risky proposition around these parts, as everybody knows. We begin with the Atlanta Hawks. Grant. Oh no, we're doing the West.
I was gonna let you see. I was gonna see how long you were gonna go because you got the alphabet part right. Because A is the first letter.
That doesn't count as an alphabet fail, correct?
No,
okay.
The different category, conference fail.
Western Conference. We begin with the Dallas Mavericks. Grant, please spread some Dallas Mavericks optimism for us.
So it's interesting that what really I'm excited about, what I'm happy about, or what the Mavericks should be happy about is silence, which is to say, I don't know about you, but I know that coming into this season and really going back to last year, like this, anyone who's listened to me talk at all about Dallas you could just guess what I'm going to say, which is the Kyrie Irving trade triggered a cascade of possible futures in which, in many of them, Luka Doncic asked for a trade because this thing goes sideways and Irving does whatever he does to, disrupt the team. And the fact that Dallas is kind of asset poor and has some defensive deficiencies, like, oh, this is clearly the catastrophe potential was not only like in play, but started to seem kind of likely if you're a real alarmist. But the fact that Dallas has started out so well this year, the fact that Kyrie Irving has just looked really good, Luka has been just as good. The pace is up in Dallas, which people have been calling for all the time. Now, a lot of that's when Irving's out there without Doncic. Doncic still plays slow, but the pace is up. The scoring efficiency for Doncic is as good as it's ever been. He's making tons of threes. Maybe that normalizes. Derek Lively has brought energy to the defense. The defense is still not great, but like there's a way forward you can see with him there. And so that's all to say, I haven't even thought once about the, catastrophe potential of Luka being unhappy and, at some point this year or, maybe next or whatever, wanting to leave or at least agitating for more change or maybe that changes like change me. I want to go someplace different.
Right.
Haven't thought about that. Hopefully he hasn't. And I think as long as this offense holds up, and I think it will, Dallas is going to buy at least a year. And then who knows what happens later on, how they improve the roster going forward, where they get that wing defender, where they get that third ball handler. Those are all questions down the line. But the thing to me that's so great is that we just don't have to think about Luka wanting to leave. And I thought that we would have to think about that this year.
Mavs fans are back to complaining about Dwight Powell, which is a signal of how good things are for the most part. And they're like, because you have Luka, you could probably build a path to them winning everything just if things broke right. And the West is, aside from a healthy Nugget squad, it remains so wide open. But they're not a quintessential one player away. They're more like a half a player away, where if you get the wing player who doesn't torpedo your spacing, where it's okay, Derrick Jones Jr. has made some shots, but those lineups have been touch and go because defenses don't guard him the way they would others. If they get that player, it's just a problem. Their assets are limited and so many other teams are looking for that player. I automatically assume, let's say, for instance, and I don't think they're going to move him. I want to be clear. If OG Anunoby becomes available, I don't think that they have the juice to get him. They might have enough if they're willing to pay him. They could be a Jeremy Grant team. That might be like, if you're just looking for a first round pick or just stuff, depending on, because Jeremy Grant has not looked great. Like, just he's been exposed when you don't have other playmakers around you right now. But like the fact we're talking about that rather than the Luka stuff, and the other thing that I think coincides with your silence, and I apologize if I missed this, Luka's complaining less.
I didn't mention that. That's like any half decent writer would have made that reference.
This is a podcast, though. You're fine.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Kenny will have us covered in his reaction episode.
No, that's totally right. That's totally right. He's still doing it a little bit. Like I forget who they're playing the other night. I think it was the Kings. That was a great game, by the way, Mavs Kings game, which Dallas didn't win. But he got it. You could see him almost catch himself. You could see him start to like do the palms up, like, what are we doing? How did you not see? Like, and then he would like reel it in. So that's been such an ingrained part of his whole like on-court personality that it's got to be really hard to resist the urge to do that. But I think he's at least making an effort. So, and like, that is in the grand scheme of things, that's not a huge problem, I guess, because he's so good and whatever else. But like, you kind of want to cut that out if you're going to be like, if he's going to be the best version of himself. I don't think it can include all the histrionics and the complaining.
I think he's probably at a level that's manageable now for it.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
The Denver Nuggets are next up, killing the alphabet now that we have the right conference. What do you got for us, Grant?
This is another. So the thing I'm enjoying is that, when a team wins a title, there's like, you start making excuses and guys maybe coast or maybe they're fatigued. And I'm talking about the following season. It just kind of happens because they've, been playing sometimes 3 months longer than all but a couple other teams. And that's just difficult. And you have kind of a downturn in performance. for Nikola Jokic, like it's been the opposite. And it makes me wonder where the ceiling is, which is an insane thing to say about someone who's been the best player in the league for going on 3 years, maybe more if you really want to look into it. He's on pace now to either match or tie several catch-all metric career highs, like box plus minus, his player efficiency rating. All that stuff is either tied with or exceeding anything he's done before. He's on pace to set this is all after coming off a dud the other night too. So his numbers looked even better a couple of days ago. But he's shooting more threes, like more than twice as many per game as last year. It would be a career high. He's attempting 4.6 per game. He's never rebounded the ball better. His assists are down slightly, but things on the list of things I'm not worried about, it's Jokic's assist numbers and passing. So just this idea that he's been the best for a while. He had every excuse to like chill. Jamal Murray is hurt, and like Jokic has just leveled up ever so slightly. And when you're at the heights that he's at, a slight level up is it's like almost unthinkable. So that's been so exciting to me in the early going that like there's no coast. There's no let's turn it on later, at least as far as he's concerned. And that's kind of awesome to see.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. And the fact that people I know have been saying they definitely miss Jamal Murray, but they have a game where Michael Malone gets ejected, Nikola Jokic gets ejected, and then they just go and beat the Pistons anyway. I know it's the Pistons, which you need to snort a bag of Dramamine if you're going to watch the Pistons a lot of the time these days. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. There's nothing I've seen that makes me want to pick another team to win a title. Just like Boston has had its moments, and even Milwaukee lately, but I just look at the Nuggets and it's, if they're healthy, I mean, there's some concerns about nobody aside from Jokic gets fouled consistently. And so that could be something that comes back to bite them in the playoffs. But like, let's see what Jamal Murray looks like when he comes back and is healthier. I just have zero, even the whole Zeke Naji again is not panning out for the upteenth year. I just have so few concerns. And by the way, top 10 defense without getting lucky on any really opponent shooting. They're allowing 49% shooting from the corners, and it's not like on an absurd volume. And so they're not getting, nothing about what they're doing right now is unsustainable. And so there's a chance we've yet to even see the very peak of Jamal Murray's not playing. I get it, but like the peak of what a full strength Nuggets team looks like. I know they just won a title. We probably haven't even seen it yet though.
Well, and like, remember too, it's, the peak, you're talking about like an objective peak, like this team could be better than it's ever been, but there's also like a relative component, which, and to your point of like, you have no questions, you feel just as good or better about Denver being the best team in the conference as you did however long ago. And I agree. And that's another key, because like, just compared to say, the day before the season started, we both had Denver at the top, but we definitely had several other teams that seemed like real threat, like a healthy Phoenix. The Warriors put it all together. The Clippers, at most, other than like, would you say anyone but say, I guess Minnesota has to be there, and the Thunder have been significantly better, or at least, on the high end of expected outcomes in the West to this point in the season. But almost everybody else looks like sketchier, or we have more questions now than when the season started. So relative to the rest of the conference, Denver, it just stands out even more, because some of the main threats we thought were going to be there just haven't been yet. And the ones that have risen up, Minnesota is an interesting one, because everybody likes to say how well they play the Nuggets, and just Minnesota is just objectively good now. But other than those two teams, I feel like Denver has fewer threats now than it looked like it was going to have, which is kind of amazing considering like they came in as the best team. So I don't know, that's like more of a macro discussion we could have at some point, is like how the conference landscapes changed. But in Denver's case, it looks better for them than it did not that long ago.
The continuity and steadiness at the top is part of the thing with them. And there's just value in that.
Yeah.
You know what comes after D? E and F. We don't have teams for E and F, but we do have the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. What do you have for them?
The good thing about them is the bench so far. They're top 5 players in net rating differential, like on off, which is, you can check on Cleaning the Glass. There's noise in all this stuff. It's still early. They all are bench players. This was a really pronounced difference even earlier in the season when the Warriors were winning more. They finally snapped I think there was a 5-game losing streak at home. They beat the Rockets last night as we're recording this on Tuesday. But the through line of the season has been the starters have been shockingly unproductive, and the bench has either held the fort or been the reason that some of these leads have expanded. And that is just so upside down from how the Warriors have operated for so long. That's like, it's kind of the only thing you can talk about now, because it's the biggest surprise. It's the biggest difference in how this team has operated. And it sort of encompasses some of the other like problems. I know we're staying positive, but the fact that, Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins have been mostly very bad this year with some positive signs lately, at least for Wiggins, like that would be like just, lethal. It would be a massive problem if not for the bench and Chris Paul in particular, who's like a plus 14.5 in his minutes. Just winning or just not losing all these non-Steph Curry minutes. Steph Curry, by the way, still has a negative on-off split, which is just like
first time in his career, right? Aside from there was that year, I think 2020,
yeah.
he played in 4 games or whatever it was.
And he's just routinely, and it's just a total inversion of even last year and the year before, where you just lose the minutes that he's not out there, and now they lose the minutes that he's out there, and they win when he's not. So I think things will normalize, gradually over the course of the season, and maybe the bench is a mild positive, and the starters eventually are a bigger positive. But like for now, I mean, this team's 7-8, and I don't know what that record is if the bench isn't really good. So that's a huge angle so far this season.
And they've tried to get, I won't say too cute, but like when they go all bench, like Chris Paul plush all bench, if you consider Chris Paul an honorary starter for, like, I get it, but that unit is getting killed. Yeah. And so like they've had to find the balance of, okay, because the 2 of their 3 most lineups are demonstratively net negatives.
Right.
It's minus 12.7 for the starters, minus 19.2 for the all bench unit of CP3, GP2, Moody, Kuminga, and Saric. But you start to play around with, if Draymond's on the court and Steph is on the court and you're playing with bench players, like that's where it feels like they've been able to really hold serve. And the only other thing I would add is, have you been, I'm refreshing it now because I want to make sure I'm not saying outdated stuff, but yeah, the Chris Paul, Steph Curry minutes have just been dominant offensively. A 127.7 offensive rating. The defense isn't great, but a lot of these minutes have come without Draymond because he's missing time right now. I've actually been impressed with how well those two have been able to play together. And I think more than anything, Chris Paul is definitely more adaptable than he gets credit. Steph Curry is just the most scalable superstar in NBA history. I know people want to say it's Kevin Durant. It's not Kevin Durant. It might be Devin Booker, but it's Steph Curry.
Yeah, no, I think, there was a play last night at the end of the first half against Houston where the game was kind of slipping away. The Warriors couldn't, they were going to go into halftime, not feeling as good as they should have. Houston's on a second night of a back-to-back. Like, just, this is not a game. You've lost 5 in a row at home if you're the Warriors. And Chris Paul just called a play. It was like a double staggered screen that got Steph Curry an open 3, and he hits it with, I don't know how much time was left in the half, and gets fouled. It's a 4-point play to go into halftime. And it's like, that was 100% Chris Paul making that happen. And so, we'll see how he holds up. We'll see just what him and Draymond are always going to be a really weird fit because they kind of occupy the same roles in an offense, Paul and Draymond. And the Warriors generally have some lineup decisions that are going to have to get made if and when everyone's healthy. Like, they're playing like 12 guys pretty routinely. And that's just,
he's out there.
He's playing plenty. Like, there's calls for him to
just playing off the ball against the Rockets. Did you see that? I think it was the first half.
I mean, there are. Yeah, I don't know what I think Pods and Trace Jackson Davis just have to be the guys to lose time once everybody's good to go. But if it were on merit,
my vote would be Andrew Wiggins or Klay Thompson.
I'm saying, like, Klay Thompson is the guy that has. I mean, if you're just talking about how they've played this year, he should have his role reduced. It's just that things happened before this year of some consequence that has earned him quite a bit of rope. And the other thing is, like, the Warriors have underperformed record-wise, I think, for sure, relative to expectations. But if you assume that Thompson and Wiggins won't be just objectively terrible for the rest of the year, like, there's a decent amount of upside here. So if you want to keep with the optimism theme, there's also that.
Speaking of the Houston Rockets, they are next up. There's plenty of reasons to be buzzing about this team. What have you come up with?
Just that they dodged, thinking kind of big picture, they dodged the Harden bullet. And if Ime Udoka is the reason that, because remember that reporting, I think they walked it back, and Udoka did so, I think, in pretty pointed comments. But there was definitely some indication that the Rockets were very much interested in James Harden. This is going back to last year. And then Udoka said, like, thanks, but no thanks, more or less. And just imagine, like, here's what you're not getting if you have James Harden on this team. I don't know what you're doing. You probably don't have Brooks or Van Fleet, first of all. But the bigger thing is Alperen Sengun is not getting anywhere close to the chance he's gotten this year to prove that, like, he's actually the team's best player and has just incredible upside as an offensive hub. So he's obviously, like, we're not breaking news by saying Sengun has been incredible this year. He's the stat I uncovered on this one. Now we're thin slicing, whatever, but these are always fun. He's on pace to become the youngest player in history to average at least 19, 8, and 5 with a 60% true shooting percentage. Like,
damn.
I mean, that's like, we're thin. Yeah. Again, like, we're cherry picking, whatever you want to call it, but like, those are real numbers, and throwing the true shooting in there is legit. And you just watch the guy play, and he's a monster in the post, which he wouldn't get to be with James Harden on the team. He's a great passer from the elbows. Like, he's going to have like a Sabonis-ish kind of impact in that regard. He's improved defensively. Just his primacy on the team does not happen if the Rockets go down that other road. And I think, like, maybe if Harden were healthy, committed, like, cared, all that other stuff, just these massive ifs, like, maybe the Rockets are about as good as they are right now. But just like the runway they have to be so much better is very clear with this iteration of the team. So sometimes it's the moves you don't make.
Yeah, that's a great one. And they've been, even during this losing streak, as we're recording this, they've lost 3 straight. We kind of already touched about this. They put up a fight against the Warriors on a road on a back-to-back. The defense is just materially different, in large part because of, Jabari Smith Jr. has done some stuff.
Yep.
Sengun's been a little bit better on that end than I expected, but like Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks had Steph in hell, both of them, and for a lot of that game. Steph eventually broke out because it's Steph, but like the volume wasn't there. And that's part of being in games against the Warriors is, Steph can be hyper efficient and still go off, but if you're actually limiting his touches or his shot opportunities, that's an absolute win. And their defense having the ability to do that, they finally have a direction. There are some bigger picture questions, but I think the fact that now you have your directional centerpiece and you know that it's Sengun, this isn't to say that he can't play with Jalen Green or Jabari Smith Jr. We haven't seen a lot of Amen Thompson yet. He absolutely can, but this is the guy right now, unless someone comes and takes that from him. But it's not a requirement where we were questioning who it was. Was it Jalen Green? Could it be Jabari Smith? Is it automatically Amen Thompson? And Sengun was kind of 4th in the pecking order. Even though we knew he was really good, there just wasn't that belief that the Rockets were going to hand him over the keys. And even to start this season, it wasn't sort of like that. And then it was, a half game in, a game in. Oh, no, this is the direction we're going to head. And it's working.
Yeah. You hate to make everyone makes the Jokic comparison just because he's a big guy that passes and you can run the offense through. But like, the thing that I don't think gets discussed enough is the way that he's kind of made it obvious and seized the main role in the offense is very much like Jokic did, where it was like, if you watch the guy play for any length of time, it's just clear, he should touch the ball more than anyone. That's just, it's like undeniable. It removes all the controversy of like, well, Jalen Green is, the more conventional type of leading star that teams look at, and he's just like, well, okay, cool. Maybe he'll become that someday. But at the moment, you just can't justify anyone but Sengun being number one. That's just, he made it obvious. He made it easy for the Rockets that way.
Unless you have anything else on the Rockets, you ready to move on to the Los Angeles Clippers?
Sure am. I would like to talk to you about Russell Westbrook and his personal growth.
I thought you were going to go with, it really just can't get much worse than it was.
No, yeah. I mean, searching for positives was harder for some teams than others. This is one of them. I just focused in on this is semi-older news, but it's a big deal. Westbrook agreeing to just volunteering to come off the bench to accommodate James Harden, who's a guy that he's clashed with in the past and who, like, really, if you're Westbrook, you would be beyond justified in saying, I'm not adjusting for anybody, like, let alone this guy that is coming in and disrupting kind of, what's been like Westbrook his late career arc is, we're going to have to like do a deep dive on it at some point, but like his uncompromising nature, his unwillingness to change how he played with the Lakers was part of the reason that whole thing did not work. That was eminently foreseeable. It's part of the reason that he's making $3 million, just gone from an MVP that just had to have the ball all the time to just really having to figure out like, where do I fit now at this stage in my career? And then for him to go and say, I'll come off the bench or I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's PR spin. Maybe that's, I got to get this news out that I volunteered before the Clippers just demote me.
Right.
You know, if you're going to be cynical about it, that's something to consider. But I'm impressed. And like, I've been harder on Westbrook than most probably because of his stubbornness and, style of play, but you got to give it to him. I think, he's doing the team first thing. And nobody's really ever, I don't think anyone's ever questioned that he cares about winning and that kind of thing. But I think up until very recently, his position was, because I care about winning and because I have this unflinching self-belief, the way we win is by me doing what I do. And I think he's changed a little bit in that regard. And I think that's kind of admirable. I don't know if that means the Clippers are going to get anything done. Probably not, but it's, we got to celebrate some personal growth.
Well, it allowed them to get to the thing that we always knew they were going to have to get to try and optimize this team. And so they did it early on, fewer than 10 games into the experiment. And so that there's real value in that. And I'm still so fascinated to see where this team goes from here. I just still feel like, I know the Daniel Tice stuff will help and it kind of proves that they're not looking to play ultra small, but like PJ Tucker has these stretches where it's, he still kind of has it defensively at points. Like the game he had against Jokic, like a week or so ago, but then he is so low volume and sometimes most of the time a complete non-factor on the offensive end. How do you work around that? Are we going to run into issues where they're sort of, are these players okay? Where it's, some nights you're just not going to have as many shots or opportunities because someone else has it going. It still feels like they need to make another trade. And I don't know if I would put them, I'm trying to think of the most optimized version of them with this core. And does it belong in the inner circle of contenders? We don't know, but I think them getting to at least part of the model that is going to serve them best in the long term, in large part because Westbrook asked for it so early, that's an absolute positive.
Yeah.
The Lakers, what do you got for us?
I mean, we're going to get real basic and just talk about how LeBron is so good at 39.
Can I interject?
That's
absolutely not basic. Dude is in his age 39 season and they just still can't function without him.
This is the thing. It's not just like, well, it's two things. One, he's had these fourth quarter takeovers multiple times this season. So to your point, it's like, yeah, the Lakers, as mediocre as they've been for a lot of the season, they're without him just winning them games in fourth quarters. I don't know where they are. I don't know what the narrative is. And then it's just the raw numbers. Like, Karl Malone's the only guy at this age to average over 20. James is going to be 25 plus easy, like no problem. He's got the highest scoring average of anybody at like 35, 36, 37, 38. So this is it just keeps going. And like, if you had to guess what year, this is an open-ended question. What year do you think we started saying before each season, like, I kind of think this is probably the year he tails off, or we can't count on him being, this guy anymore? Because I think it's been like 8 years. We've been having some version of that conversation, right? Like some version of it.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of a thing of, okay, can it happen in extended enough doses? There's definitely a difference there, but yeah, for sure.
He, when I pulled these stats, he was his on-off split was plus 29.1. I actually think it's higher than that now. I think he's number one in the league, and it might be like in the 40s or something like completely absurd. Maybe I'll look that up at some point later. But yeah, like, I guess it's that he's not the same player he was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. But the precipitous drop off is just like, it's just not going to happen. We're just going to get little incremental, he's not as fast as he was. He definitely is not as vertical, as a over your head dunker. It's like, that's really not there anymore, except with a major runway. But it's just like, he's still playing at an all NBA level, and he's doing it in ways that like are massively impactful on winning. And I know, like, the level, because he's been around for so long, like, it feels like LeBron fatigue is just like a chronic condition we all live in. But you can't, like, this is just different. This is another, he's the greatest old player of all time, and he's also like maybe the greatest young player of all time. And in the middle, he was pretty good too. So I don't know. We can't not talk about that for the Lakers, because everything else would feel like you were just ignoring what he's doing.
And it's sort of like, I don't want to get into player rankings, but who are the players that you are so sure are better, more valuable than LeBron right now. Jokic, Giannis, Steph, Doncic, but like it's, and there are other. Embiid's going to be in that discussion. People are going to talk about Shai. They really shouldn't. Maybe they could talk about Durant. I'd be more inclined to put Booker ahead of Durant, but the sample size this season specifically, the fact that he's just, even if we want to just broaden it and say he's one of the 10 most valuable players in the league right now, that's not even close to a stretch, right? And that's absurd to say about an age 39 season LeBron. And the other thing is, I know fan bases that aren't the Lakers get fatigued when their team wins, but all these LeBron highlights are being spit out. I get it, but it's also just, as much as we rag on people for going the age 39 or vintage LeBron route, this is age 39 season and there are still chase down blocks happening. And there is that emotional component. If you're just a fan of the game, how much longer are we going to watch this? Not because he can't do it, because at some point he's going to choose to stop doing it. And I don't ever want that to happen.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like, I remember feeling a certain way when like Dirk retired and when Tim Duncan retired, like, cause those were like kind of generationally defining players for me. And like, I don't know what I'm going to think when LeBron retires. Cause we've, it'll be 2+ decades of like, this guy is the defining feature of the league we care so much about. And now he's gone. Like that, if for no other reason, that's why we should be never shutting up about how good he is in his age 39 season.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think you made the right pick there. I'm imagining this next team may have been the most difficult one, although I can come up with one very easily off the top of my head. And I have not looked at yours, so I'm very curious if you went this route. It's the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, so the best thing about the Memphis Grizzlies this year is that there's lots of time left in the year. And like that might seem like a real negative if you're of the opinion that the way the first, they played 13 games. When I was putting this together, they played 13 and they were 3-10. You might not feel great about the fact that there's a long season ahead if you think this will continue. I'm just like, I'm not persuaded that this is how it's going to be. I think, they don't have their best player, right? Ja Morant is halfway through his suspension, give or take. And it's not like he's going to be, he'll need ramp up time, whatever, but it's not like he's coming off an injury. So you can sort of assume when he's back, he'll be who he was or close enough to it as to sort of put everyone else back in the proper position. Marcus Smart should be coming back fairly close to when Ja does, maybe a little before, maybe a little after, depending on that 3 to 5 week timeline. Jaren Jackson Jr. still is a defensive player of the year caliber guy. Like he didn't forget how to do that. And then everybody else with Morant back in the fold sort of slots back into more sensible roles. You don't get Steven Adams back. That's the big one. But I do see a way for this team to play at a 50 win pace once they're whole. And now what that's going to get you depends on how deep the chasm they dig is between now and Morant's return. But I think, look, the Lakers started 3-10 last year. Now, granted, they remade their team at the deadline, but they made the conference finals. So would they start this bad in terms of record? So it's like, that's the exception. That's not the rule. But there's a very recent example of the first, dozen-ish games do not sink your season, especially with half the teams in the West are 6-9 or 7-8 and whatever. So it's not like this is fatal just yet for Memphis.
Now, my question would be, is it definitely not fatal? Can you afford to lose this much ground in the West where, okay, you're 3-10 as we record this, and what are the teams in front of you that you're banking on to actually get worse? Because I think you could argue when it comes to the Clippers, the Warriors, even the Pelicans, the Suns, those are teams we all expect to get better.
I would say, so as I'm looking at the standings now, they're 3 games behind Golden State for 10th. I would say Golden State's upside is probably higher, but that's still just 3 games. And, the Warriors could have a couple injuries and then they're worse off than Memphis is. Houston, I think, has overperformed, but maybe Houston's this good. Houston is 500 right now. Maybe the Pelicans are better than 500, but they're 500 right now. The Suns, we think, are better than 7-6, which is the pace they're on, their record now. But if they keep never having Bradley Beal in the lineup and maybe Devin Booker, you're right. It's a lot easier to say there are rosier pictures for several of the teams ahead of Memphis. But I do think if Memphis can play like break even basketball, which seems like a big ask, maybe given how they've played so far until Ja is back, like it's not going to be insurmountable. I think, Portland, San Antonio, done. They're 3-10 and 3-11. That's just different. Memphis has like all these pathways to being better, but like I can't argue with the fact that there's 12 teams in the West currently ahead of them, and you could make the case that everyone but Utah might just be better. But this is a team that won 50 games 2 years in a row. They're not a 3-10 team. I can't get there yet. And they have a lot of time to prove it, to circle all the way back to the hook of this.
Of the many options for this optimism index, what did you settle on for the Minnesota Timberwolves?
I took it selfishly, and this is kind of for me and for you. This is vindication. We thought that maybe last year this is what the Timberwolves would be, and they were not. There were many reasons for that. And I guess we probably shouldn't say that they profiled as a team that was going to have one of the best defenses in the league. And I, by the way, I've walked back on my skepticism of that defense a little bit, having watched more film of them, because Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards as like point of attack guys is terrifying, and everyone should be concerned about that. Also, and then Gobert on the back line has been
Rudy Gobert has probably been drug tested just because of the way that he's moving on the defensive end this year compared to last year.
Different guy.
That there's been a random drug test for him.
Different guy. So this is just what we're seeing now is just like, oh yeah, okay, this was why we picked them to win 50 whatever games last year and be second or third in the conference. I can't remember exactly how high we were on it, but we were high. Sure. We believed.
We said we were clearly wrong, and now we're saying we're right.
Yeah.
So we remain inconsistent. I think the takeaway was they definitely overpaid for Gobert because it became clear the market wasn't there. And now the hole that you put yourself into fleshing out the rest of the roster. But like, this is if you make a Western Conference Finals, it's just worth it because of your history.
Well,
and they're on that track. They are the best team in the Western Conference. And the only team I'm prepared to say is better than them in the West, definitively at full strength, is the Nuggets. And that is the team Minnesota's the team that's given Denver probably more, you don't want to say matchup problems, matchup curiosities than any other team in the West.
Well, and it's just the idea that the way that the pieces have fit. Now, Conley was something, they didn't have Mike Conley when last season started, and he's been important, especially.
You remember me speaking of your own shitting all over that trade?
I mean, it's not.
Conley has so many bad takes. How am I supposed to remember them all?
You picked Denver to win the title last year. You can dine on that one forever. I just think the way that the Wolves fit and the way that they are playing is kind of how you would have envisioned it in a best case scenario, which is to say Edwards takes a step forward, which kind of gets everybody in the proper spot in the pecking order because it's his team. Cat scores when he can score. His defensive lift is light, and so he can play. He's been a little better defensively. I mean, that's a low bar for him. Gobert cleans the messes up. Jaden McDaniels guards and hits threes and does a little more, and then Mike Conley organizes it. And then the other thing, I don't know, this is an unscientific thing to talk about, but like, do you like anyone's 6, 7, 8 guys more than Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson, and Alexander Walker? Like, I love that three off the bench because they tick so many boxes, and they like Alexander Walker is a pretty good McDaniels stand-in, and then Naz Reid just fits either. Like, he's just one of the best backup bigs in the league, and Kyle Anderson kind of does the Conley organizing stuff. So like, I think 1 through 8, I'm just, I don't know. I feel vindicated. I feel like we were a year early and maybe can use injuries as an excuse last year.
Well, look at how few time their best, forget about the Conley stuff, but then say their other 4 best players spent together last year. Injuries were certainly part of it, but Rudy Gobert played a bunch, and injuries probably had something to do with that, but did not look like this. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. It just feels like a bunch of different things. Also, this is a different version of having Towns available for sure, but like, this is Anthony Edwards is as good as he's ever been at both ends of the floor.
Clearly leveled up, and like the defensive piece of it too. You worry with someone because there was never a question about the tools for him defensively, and you worry sometimes when it's like, oh, he's very engaged now, that might not be an 82 games thing. Like it might wax and wane, especially as well as the Wolves have played. Maybe he relaxes a little, but just like now I feel confident that in a playoff series, Edwards is going to be a defensive monster like that I wasn't always sure of, but now that we've seen him do it and also level up offensively, like, I mean, good luck. And I mean, doesn't he feel kind of like I mean, not that he hasn't done it already, but he's in line for some absolutely massive playoff series, I think, where you leave it thinking this guy was the best player on the floor with tons of other really good players, and I'm scared of him in every series we see him now.
You made me think of something interesting. Are the Wolves then, I guess if you're just limiting it to 8, are they the deepest team in the league? Because I'm trying to think of who would contend with them. The Pelicans, if they were ever healthy, would have a chance. But like we just, between Trey Murphy, Larry Nash's out, CJ McCollum's out, Herb has missed time, Brandon Ingram missed time. We never kind of get to know. So they're a team that could rival it. Boston might have player for player the best 6
for sure,
the basketball, but it's going to start to taper off after that.
Yeah,
the Nuggets are there again. Though we're talking about the top 6, and Christian Brown has not had the best offensive start to the season. And then kind of after that, it's when you're trying to look to flesh out the actual depth of going that deep, where it's, oh, well, who might have a deeper 9 or an as deep of an 8? The Knicks are there, but their top end talent doesn't come close to touching Minnesota's top end. Like when you look at the top 5, like how many of the Jalen Brunson would be the what best player this season on the Timberwolves?
Oh, wow. I mean, he's Edwards for sure ahead of him. I mean, in terms of like the impact he's made,
Gobert's been ahead of him.
Gobert ahead of him is probably, he might be third would be as good as he can hope for.
This is spoiler alert for when we get to these spots. Jalen Brunson hasn't even been the best player on his own team this year. Frankly, he's getting there. He's back. He'll be fine. The off the dribble 3 is a big, like that's going to be a huge part of his game. But that, and I'm not trying to single out Jalen Brunson. That's just the Knicks are so deep, and it's the top end talent is. So the Knicks' second best player is either Mitchell Robinson. It's Mitchell Robinson right now. It's so far, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle. Where would Mitchell Robinson rank as the best player on the Timberwolves?
I mean, you know, they'd love to have him just because they can't get enough bigs. So,
they could roll out Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Mitch, and then let's get a healthy Leonard Millard in there. Shout out Kyle Tyke, who has me on the Leonard Miller train. So, like I think it's fair to say they are, especially when you're trying to look at a playoff rotation, they're the deepest team in basketball. Now, does that translate to playoff proof? I think the Nuggets and the Celtics are going to run into fewer matchup issues would be my guess.
Yes.
But like Naz Reid, when he's playing with another big, he kind of matchup proofs you in ways that we definitely didn't account for when they made this trade, and people couldn't account for last season because of how injured the bigs were in general. That is, I know some Timberwolves fans said it. Kudos to them for recognizing it, or their homerism just sort of paying off. I didn't think the Wolves were the deepest team in basketball entering this season, and I think they are right now. And I think I named all the teams that would. Is there anyone else I'm forgetting?
I was skimming through trying to think of
lighten it up. You want to throw them in there?
Just like you don't have to go. Well, you want to start with like who are just the best teams, because like Charlotte's got like 9 guys that can play. It's like, well, it's the same.
It's like Detroit is so interesting on paper, and it's like, okay, the results matter.
And that's just indicative of like, well, that actually just means you don't have anybody that's really good. You just have several guys that can all vie for minutes because nobody has got them in a chokehold. So I mean, I don't have a good. I'm trying to like the Sixers. I don't think so. Cleveland, I love their starting 5, but then after that, it's like LeVert and what? I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting somebody.
You mentioned LeVert too, which makes me think. Talk about another detour. So as of right now, in theory, the Timberwolves could have the coach of the year, the 6th man of the year, Naz Reid, and the defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert. I don't know if he would actually get it. And then, is it unreasonable? I don't think he would win it. Just looking at who he's against. Oh man, I didn't even think of that. But like, Ant Edwards for most improved, or should Gobert win most improved? Relative to last season. Stop it. No, but like MVP, like Anthony Edwards could theoretically win one of those two, MIP or MVP. But there's a chance they have 3 award winner. They don't have the rookie of the year. Sorry. I don't think they're going to get executive of the year just because there wasn't enough churn over the past. Like if you were going to account for, making that Conley trade, getting Nikola Alexander Walker, of course. But so they could have like, if you gave me over under right now on award winners on this team being 1.5, I might take the over because I think Nas Reed, I know the conventional counting stats may not be there relative to, what Karis LeVert is averaging. However, like, he's not averaging nothing. Like 12.4 points a game is up there. We're not trying to sell you on like someone averaging in the single digits, but I think voters tend to look at sixth man of the year differently. So you probably should take the under, but I'm going to take the over on 1.5 award winners because right now Finch feels like a lock for coach of the year.
Yeah, no, I think so. Just to your point before we move on, like they're 10-3. If they're 20-6 and we have the same conversation, the odds of that multiple award just keeps going up because, like, all things being equal, you're going to give sixth man of the year to the guy who played the most bench minutes and was really good for a team that wins like 58 games or whatever they're on pace for right now.
Yeah.
So, like, as long as the wins keep coming, that 1.5 over under, it's like you're definitely getting if the Wolves win in the high 50s, like the coach of the year is like done. We're definitely getting that like, and then you just need one more. So yeah, you heard it here first. The Wolves are going to sweep every end of season award because they started 10-3.
The alphabet dictates we go to the New Orleans Pelicans. What do you got for us?
Quick one. Jordan Hawkins. So he's just some guy that shoots threes.
Not Matt Ryan? Was it the injury that threw you?
So like, I think if you went back and did like a count, the number of times I know I have, and probably you have said, don't draft for fit is like in the millions, give or take. And I'm not saying necessarily that New Orleans did that, but this is a team that the most sensible version of it, if you're building around Zion Williamson on the ball and to a lesser extent, Brandon Ingram kind of, pounding the ball and looking for mid-rangers, get the guy that's going to get threes up and make them. And, Grady Dick was in this draft that he went a little earlier. Jordan Hawkins goes a couple picks later. And like, he's only hitting 36% of his threes, but he started a few games. He's surviving on defense, despite like, he's really thin and just probably won't ever be a great defender. But the main thing is he's getting threes up, and that is exactly what the Pelicans need. So just fun stat. Buddy Hield's career attempt rate is 9.4 or 9.5 3 attempts per 36 minutes, and Hawkins is right there at 9.4. So he's like getting him up like Buddy Hield does, which is a good standard to kind of try to meet if your job is to come in and space the floor and just make sure the defense knows that it cannot leave you alone. And like, even if he shoots 36%, which I think is like a tick below league average, or based on last year was like 36.1, which always throws me. That seems really high for the league average on threes. But if he's a league average shooter that's getting up, 8 to 10 a game, the dividends that pays for what the Pelicans are trying to do offensively are just like, it's worth more than that, because he's just spacing he's driving lanes are open. He makes the defense do what it doesn't want to do, which is like either collapse and give up open threes, or not collapse and let Zion and Ingram work in the middle of the floor. So small thing, but you got to give it to New Orleans for just like picking the right type of player when there were a lot of other, projects available or different types of guys they could have gone for. So Hawkins has been exciting to me just because of the fit that he's represented for the Pels.
I'm curious to see how his minutes sustain when they're at fuller strength and CJ and Trey Murphy are both in that rotation.
Yeah, you just play Murphy over him, all things being equal, if Murphy's healthy.
But I'm wondering, like, you could probably take a little bit away from Dyson Daniels.
Yeah.
And I guess Matt Ryan's minutes when he's available will get cut, because Jordan Hawkins needs to play.
Yeah.
I would say, based off of what he's done. But maybe the Pelicans are looking at it. Some of the best, I call them the best player minutes because they've been a disaster this year. Those are starting to normalize. This team is, I can't quit the Pelicans, but someone, listener Kyle Rinker, shout out, tweeted me saying, if you would have told me in the offseason that you would end up being higher on the Timberwolves than the Pelicans this far into the season, I wouldn't have believed you. And as someone who was pretty high on the Timberwolves entering this season, I can confirm that I would have been equally shocked as you told me that. So the Pelicans are starting to just perk up in general, which is a good sign.
Yeah. I know we're staying positive, but does the Zion like lack of close range attempts stuff and the diminished athleticism, what's your concern level there?
He's looked a little bit like zippier. I feel like in the past couple games. And so that we were talking about, I think we were talking about this in the Discord. I think just he didn't play much basketball last year. Hasn't played much basketball over his career. It might just take his body longer to respond, especially when you just, on top of that, he is such a unique physical specimen that maybe his ramp up when he's coming off such a long break, not just an off season, but an injury rehab, is just going to take, remember the James Wiseman ramp up that's been lasting about 5 years?
Still going.
Yeah, the James Wiseman ramp up still going. But like Zion Williamson just might need that little bit longer of a runway to get there.
It's a long ramp, Dan. It's like you got a 10-year time horizon on the James Wiseman ramp up. That's just got to be patient.
Sam Presti was a liar, meaning the Oklahoma City Thunder are up next.
That is exactly what I'm going to talk about.
He said they borrowed wins from the future. He's a liar.
That's what I'm. No, you think I'm kidding? So I want to give you the exact verbiage that I absolutely love from, I think it was Tim McMahon for ESPN. It was based on Presti's one of the 2 media availabilities he has all year, which was the preseason one where he talked for like,
that's 2 more media availabilities than the Knicks front office has.
Spoke extemporaneously for like, I don't know, 3 days, give or take. He said that of the fact that the Thunder improved by 16 wins last year over the previous season, which is like, that's a lot of wins. That does not happen often. He said they hit the 7% high end bandwidth of possibilities, which I just want to say, if you want to confuse somebody or just make it so they believe more than they do about anything, just reference, the 7% high end bandwidth of possible outcomes on the spectrum. Like 7% high end. I mean, like, I just have so many. I want to know, is there a flow chart somewhere in Thunder headquarters that has their, like, I know what all those words are, but bandwidth doesn't make sense to me in that context. Anyway, this is all to say that he did trick us. We are gullible dummies, and we should have expected the Thunder. Some people did, by the way, to be the darling of the season and to be the team that took the leap, which they are. And that those 16 wins they got over 2 years ago's total were like just part of an upward trajectory and not something that is going to pull back. So like, this team, they're so young, right? And they still have like a lot of holes to fill on the roster, but just between SGA and Chet and Jalen Williams, they like, I mean, Giddey is like an afterthought. He's been up and down, mostly down this year. I just don't see where the fall off comes, other than like, maybe the defense isn't going to be good enough. Maybe the depth becomes an issue, but like this idea that, we borrowed wins or, we exceeded expectations. And, it's just not accurate. Like I don't know if Presti believed that when he said it, or if it was expectation management, if it was sincere. I mean, either way, it's probably good to underpromise and then overdeliver, I guess. But no, this is not a team that I think borrowed wins. I think this is a team that is going to have enough wins over the next several years that like there will be no talk of that kind of thing for a long time with this team.
This is going to, and they clearly don't need it now. This is only going to add nitrous to the national conversation where it's, well, when are the Thunder going to push all their chips in? And it's just right now they don't need to push any chips in. We can quibble over certain makeups of the roster or things we'd like to see them do or add, but I see people coming up with fake trades to get them Zach LaVine. I'm just like, why?
Don't need them.
They don't need it right now. I think like eventually like maybe some more conventional size up front, like to help improve with their defense. But this team is just, they're not finished, but they're definitely more. Mo Tequil said this on a low post. They're more cooked in a good way, where it's like they're not as raw as I think even they were expecting. And I think it's a test. Chet Holmgren is just ready. Yep. And I got into a spirited debate that I thought Wemby would have been my rookie of the year in the moment when I was making the debate, because his role is harder. And I still believe his role is harder, but like the optimization of Chet and the way he's just improved, like the stuff he's been able to do off his paint touches, he's the rookie of the year.
Oh right, yeah. Now. Right. Like today, right now, I think that's right.
So, and well, the Spurs are kind of, I'm interested to see what you came up with them. They're in a little bit of disarray and free fall. So it's, if you're going to be Sam Presti too, I don't know if he was purposely trying to lower expectations, because that's one, job security, and two, you don't want to put undue pressure on a core that's still pretty young. But like, you're getting to the point where no matter what the Thunder say now, the results are so good, so comprehensive, that the expectations and the pressure are coming. they're not just as happy to be in the mixed team anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They might be internally. That's not going to be the scope. And even the way their fan base can react at times, I mean this as a compliment. Like, there are expectations throughout the fan base now. And I think we both hit the under on their win total leading into the season, in part because of what Sam Presti said. And like, by the way, they're still doing a shit ton of experimentation. It's like these wins are just coming while they're still, I would say, pretty capably planning for the bigger picture. They've had to integrate other guys into the rotation because they were injured, specifically Jay Will and Kendrick Williams. This team is, I don't know where they are, and just if we make an echelon of the best teams in the league, but they have a top 4 seed in the West right now, which isn't easy to do even this early. And all their vitals, it's kind of like last year where on paper and the things that they're saying, the Cavaliers aren't supposed to be contenders. But when you look at their statistical vitals, they should be contenders. And like Oklahoma City is just in that. You can't have a top 7 offense and a top 4 defense.
Fourth on defense, which I just questioned a few minutes ago.
Fourth on defense while being 29th in defensive rebounding rate, which is just like,
I mean,
wild.
And just like, it's all, there's so much, there's so many possibilities. I don't know about where this is on their bandwidth percentage, but like this idea that like, we don't have any idea what kind of player Chet Holmgren is going to be ultimately, or, 3 years from now, even, right? Like you said, like he's in a way better position than Wembanyama because he's been able to just kind of like SGA and to a lesser extent, Jalen Williams kind of just run the offense and Giddey sets guys up. And Holmgren really has been the beneficiary of like very good teammates getting him shots where he's just positioned to succeed. But like, I think there's every chance. And his ball handling, his individual shot creation, his ability to just pump fake and get downhill off a pick and pop is like, who's to say this guy isn't like number one option, like who's like Lauri Markkanen, level of shooting volume and stuff like that with just nastier drives. And like, there's no telling how good he's going to be by the end of this year, even forget 3 years from now. I mean, I think SGA is, he's like a top 5-ish player in the league right now. I don't know how much better he's going to get, but I think Williams will get better. Like Cason Wallace is going to get better, even though he's making half his threes. Like that's going to come down.
He might make, they might have 2 first team all rookies. I don't know if Cason's going to have the volume at the end of the day.
It's hard for him because his role can't be that big with these other 3 guys.
And just Wemby's going to be on first team, no matter what, like how inefficient he is, unless something catastrophic happens between now and then. And that's going to be when you're talking about Asar Thompson's going to be in the mix, and Keyonte George and Bilal Coulibaly. There's this rookie class, by the way, is just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Isaiah Joe has been one of my, again, if you're going to make a ranking of the most entertaining players to watch, like, yeah, that's where Shai and Chet and Wemby are going to come in. Isaiah Joe's been one of my favorite players to watch this season. It's like his shot has started to fall, but even when it's not, like he's working his ass off on defense. He'll set screens on offense. Like this team is just, there's so many play. I want to quibble over that Ousmane Dieng just doesn't get more minutes. And I know he hasn't been great this year. They are so well positioned. It doesn't make sense. And trying to reconcile that with the immediate results and then expectations that come with them, it still does feel like there's warring agendas here between what the Thunder are trying to do internally and what's actually happening on the court. It's not necessarily impacting how they operate though. So they're not warring. It's very abnormal for the self-described stage that they're in. And again, they're back, like Cason Wallace is playing. Yeah. Like they're backing that up with the experimentation. So you heard it here first. Thunder are the 2024 champs on accident. Basically.
We were tricked. Let's talk Phoenix. This is a quick
one.
You
don't want to skip them?
Well, this is an easy, it's a quick one. The Beal not being healthy sucks. Booker missing time sucks. Durant playing 1,000 minutes a night, not ideal. The depth issues are still there. The other question we had coming into the season was like, who's going to play point guard and how's that going to work? Devin Booker is a point guard. So that is the thing I'm happiest about so far. And like, it's not just, he's doing a good job as a converted wing who's had to play on the ball. It's like, no. So just for some context, he's always been a high assist rate guy for his position. When he's always been mostly categorized on Cleaning Glass as a wing. He's a combo guard this year, which I guess technically is right. But he's always been in the 90 plus percentile in terms of assist percentage among wings, with like his assist rate, which is kind of the raw number, is in the 20s, like 23%, 25%, 22%, that area. This year, as a combo guard, he is in the 100th percentile in assist rate, and his assist percentage is 45%, which like he has not touched, like just is nowhere near there. His turnover rate is 11.3%, which is in like middle of the pack, which again, like this is not someone that was born a point guard. This guy was just like, you get buckets at Kentucky and that's your job. And if you can pass, great. It's not a part of his game that's been developed. The fact that his assists are so far up and his turnovers have not spiked, again, while surrounded by guys that very much in a lot of cases depend on him for their points, because that was the theory of this team is we have Durant, Beal, Booker. Everybody else is going to have to like, Eric Gordon's going to make some catch and shoots or catch and drives. Watson Abi's going to catch and shoot. Like someone like Keita Bates, Diop, who's been disappointing and missed time. Like all these guys are dependent scorers, and Booker has set them up better than anyone could have, better than I expected. I don't know. Maybe you thought, I think you've been quicker to acknowledge how good Booker is than I have, like at every step. So maybe this isn't like a shock to you, but I've been blown away by how good he's looked running the offense. Like it's not serviceable. He's like an actual value add as an on-ball guy, to the point where it's like, can we even afford to make sure he's off the ball enough to get cleaner looks? Well, because he's
might have to, just because he's, of the three stars, he's the best player off the ball.
Yeah, right. So like you need two Devin Bookers, I guess, but one has been plenty so far.
Yeah, that's just, he is, and this is a more of a blanket statement because there are 5 players who are more valuable or better than him right now. But like this is to say, when you look at the level of star power at the top, we just talked about Anthony Edwards. We mentioned the Thunder, and they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There's Jason Tatum. There's Giannis. There's Jokic. There's Embiid. There's LeBron James. I know I'm forgetting people in general, but like to say you're a top 10 player in the NBA right now, that's fucking wild. And Devin Booker, to say that they're certified, you can't tell me, like, I'm not putting Devin Booker, I'm probably going to put closer to 7 than I'm going to put the 10 in the top 10 rankings. And that's monstrous to have that player. So I'm definitely with you there. And you want to start ranking point guards, he's going to be up there.
I mean, if he's actually a point guard, 9.8 assists per game, 9.8. Like it's only 5 games. I get it. Still,
remember when we were making bold or what was off the rails predictions, and I was like, he's going to average over 7 just to make it a career high. And apparently that wasn't even audacious enough.
Not bold enough.
The Portland Trailblazers are up next. What do you got for them?
Oh boy, this was a struggle because I used up you can't use the Memphis thing of there's a lot of time left. I think there
is a lot of time left for them not to like suck long term. Memphis has more immediate expectations.
I guess if you wanted to zoom out, that is kind of where I'm going, is like, despite a raft of injuries to everyone that would make plays for them. Simons is out. Scoot has been, this ankle thing has been just a disaster for his development and for getting an idea of the team. Shaedon Sharpe started out great, but I think he's been overburdened. You got Skylar Mays playing point guard. Malcolm Brogdon has been pretty good when he's played, but like that's not a core piece. That's trade fodder. I still think, based on what we've seen so far and just the broad conception of this team, the outlines of a team that like makes sense and could be good is still there. I'm not talking about this year, but I think what Sharpe showed and continues to show, like if you just take some of you got to create stuff off of his plate and make him what he should be at this ridiculously young age as a starter, just like more of a scorer who benefits on the space created by other guys. Like I feel really good with Sharpe as like maybe your shooting guard and maybe your theoretical like top scorer going forward. Then you have Henderson and Simons. Like this, I think that's totally workable. And if Scoot is what he was billed as, then beyond workable. Like he's going to be a generational point guard. And then you got Ayton just rebounding, doing the dirty work stuff. I don't know what you do with Jeremy Grant. I mean, Toumani Camara might just be like the glue guy that they kind of need to grow with this core that doesn't need to shoot, really isn't a great shooter, but will guard anything that moves and can pass the ball, wants to pass. Like just the outline of the Blazers is still a positive to me. I still am optimistic about if this core sticks together, there's a lot of upside to it. It's just like, what else are you going to say based on how things have gone this year? Because so many of the most important guys just haven't played really. And so we don't have like any sense of like what this team will actually be, because you can't form that opinion based on what we've seen so far.
I wonder how much differently we'd be discussing them if they didn't have all these guard injuries, because you can just see it in the way they play. I went on the rant about DeAndre Ayton's touches. I don't know if you saw the clip of him going around where he had the Wednesday before Thanksgiving energy, chasing down a loose ball. He was in like a 3-point game with 2 minutes left against the Lakers. And just like, if you even watch him, he just won't connect on screens, and he'll like flip screens when he's screening no one. And you can make fun of DeAndre Ayton for it, but there's like a lack of organization and coherence and just a plan on the offensive end right now. And would that have changed had they had, I would say, Malcolm Brogdon and or Scoot Henderson is critical to that having happened. So I don't really know how to judge them. But this is, I will say, is Jeremy, based on everything that's happened, is Jeremy Grant's trade value right now higher or lower than you would have expected at this point in the season? And he can't be traded right now.
Yeah, right. I think I don't know if it's any lower than it was like from the moment he signed that deal. I mean, it's definitely not higher though. So I guess by default, it's either the same or lower, just because, well, he's such a weird player, because we talk all the time about how he's had like 5 different careers. He's been like 5 different types of player, and he's kind of the Detroit Pistons Jeremy Grant right now, where he's thrown into a role where he's asked to do too much on offense and the efficiency is suffering. I think I will, this isn't really going to answer your question, but I've just sort of always thought he should be your 4th or 5th best guy in the lineup, and he's going to defend, he's going to make open threes, and he's not going to be asked to do a ton of put the ball on the floor and figure it out for yourself. And he's just not in a position where that's possible with the Blazers right now. So his trade value depends on what a team thinks like the version of Grant that I'm talking about is worth. And I think, unfortunately, the answer is probably not going to be what he's being paid right now.
The Sacramento Kings.
So my favorite thing about them right now is De'Aaron Fox is basically Wolverine, because the ankle sprain he had that cost him 5 games. When I saw it, I know that I know I always do this, but when he rolled the ankle and you could see the entire bottom of his shoe, I just thought, like, oh no, this is how the Kings season just goes off the rails. Because without him, they're not anything of consequence. Like, you can run stuff through Sabonis. They're 2-3 without Fox this year. They're 6-2 with him. He's plus 10.3 in terms of offensive efficiency for the Kings when he's on the floor. The turnovers drop like crazy when he's out there. So it's just like, he's player of the week just now, for whatever that's worth, because he came back and suddenly the Kings stopped losing games and their offense was league best again. I just thought that he was done for like weeks and weeks and weeks when he rolled that ankle, because it looked so bad. And he's back after 5 games and just immediately looks exactly like he did before. And the Kings are awesome again. So I guess I'm just happy that, I think we still believe that the Kings are going to suffer injuries, because they're just, that's what happens to teams, except for them last year. I'm just glad that wasn't the one that really threw things off so early in the season. Because I don't know, I keep putting guys in the all NBA conversation. Like, I can't talk about Tyrese Halliburton without saying he's going to be on all NBA teams forever now. Same with SGA. I think Fox is the same. Like, he's not going to be a one and done all NBA guy. I think
getting rid of the positions is going to do wonders for the guards. I think where it's
he's
like,
good. I'm glad he's not hurt. That's
other than Embiid, Giannis, and Jokic, like bigs are just, will they even, like Bam Adebayo should maybe deserve consideration. I don't know if he's going to get there. Well, just to tack on to what you're saying too, the Kings are a plus 10.2 when Fox per 100 possessions when Fox plays without Sabonis. They're a minus 9.4 when Sabonis plays without Fox. The sample size there is obviously bigger because Fox missed the time. And another development to be optimistic, their top most played units, I think all 6 of them, have really strong defensive ratings. A lot of that shot location, field goal percentage, and they've been getting burned. The 70% shooting at the rim for opponents, that's not going anywhere. We don't make up the Kings. But opponents, are they going to shoot 39% from 3 all year against them? Maybe not. And when you look at the leap, and I mean leap, that Keegan Murray has made defensively and that Fox has made defensively, this team might be, I still would like to see them trade for a defensive minded wing, and they have more stuff to make that happen without giving up Keegan Murray than say the Mavericks going after that player. That could change the complexion of the championship pecking order for sure if they go out and get that type of guy. But they, even now, I think that they're better equipped to navigate the playoffs. And that's saying something because they put up a hell of a fight defensively against the Warriors in round 1 last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think like my biggest criticism of them was that they did all this talking about how we're not satisfied, and then they kind of brought back the same roster that was, going to be a bottom 5 defense or whatever, and like banked on organic growth. Like, I still think fundamentally, I would have loved to have seen them just go find guys that could help shore up their glaring weakness. But like, they also were kind of right to do the organic growth. Let's bank on chemistry. Let's assume Murray's going to get better. Let's assume Fox has not topped out, with both correct assumptions so far. So it's like, I'm of two minds about how they have built this team this year. I still think they could have been more aggressive in addressing weaknesses, but also like they weren't wrong in expecting some of their key guys to just get better and have that sort of be the reason that some of their weaknesses turned into, not strengths, but less significant weaknesses, I guess.
The San Antonio Spurs, I imagine they weren't necessarily an easy task here.
No, and this is kind of like a controversial one, I guess, because I know that there's been a lot of discussion about what they are doing with Jeremy Sochan. He's playing point guard. He's never played point guard before. It's like the one school of thought is this is stunting Victor Wembanyama's growth to some extent, and really all the other young guys, because he's just not great at this because he's never done it before. And this is, why are you seeing what he can do in this new position at the cost of, developmental reps or just the comfort of your other guys, many of whom are more important long-term? I actually still think it's a positive. I think if you're gonna like come into a season knowing we have this generational talent, we're young around him, we don't even know what Wembanyama is going to be, I think we might as well just try all kinds of stuff. Let's like this. So I take it. I get it that like, I think like to this point, Sochan is averaging, this is from Andrew Lopez on ESPN, 0.966 points per possession. The Spurs are averaging that. When Sochan brings the ball up the floor, that's worst among all 50 players that have brought the ball up 200 or more times this season. So like, if Sochan brings the ball up, that's as bad of a start to an offensive possession in the half court as you can get in the NBA, essentially. And I'm still not mad at it because you might as well figure it out, because he's such a weird player anyway that I don't think there's a way that he's just going to be like a 3-and-D wing, because the shot's not great. It's a slow release. He's just a funky type of player. You might as well see if he can fill this role. And like, really, how much damage are you doing to Wembanyama? Like, are we really going to make the argument that this guy who is going to be one of the greatest players of all time, we're going to throw that off course and ruin it because we're going to spend half a season seeing if a non-point guard can play point guard? Like, if Wemby is as great as he's supposed to be, which I think he is, this is not going to matter. So he's going to be great no matter what. Like, if he's what he's billed as, so you may as well just like screw around with the other stuff, I think.
At what point though do you think it could damage their long-term trajectory, in the sense that, okay, maybe it doesn't ruin Wembanyama, but like, what happens to Jeremy Sochan when he has to not be a point guard anymore, and you've now given him these reps at point guard and he has to go back to being a forward? And look, the Spurs are like plus $1 million when Trey Jones and Jeremy Sochan play together. They just don't play too much together right now. And so I'm almost wondering, could you be hamstringing the development of other people by having Jeremy Sochan get so many reps? Sure. But I'm all for experimentation and getting the information. At what point though, and we're still so early into this year, so I'm with you where I'm fine for the most part with what they're doing, but so much of the focus is on Wembanyama or just the Spurs office in general. Could this adversely impact how Jeremy Sochan's supposed to come along?
I guess I don't think so, because if this doesn't work, and it probably, like, ultimately, I don't know what work really means. Like, he's not going to turn into someone that leads the league in assists. And, it's like, he's always going to be an unconventional type of point guard if that's what he ends up being. I think if we have to scrap this as the Spurs, you got a guy a bunch of reps at a tough position to where when he's in a less intense on-ball role. Like maybe a couple of years from now, the ball gets swung to Sochan on the other wing, and from the weak side, he can initiate a pick and roll, and he's just better at that than he would have been otherwise. Like it's still like you're still stressing him, you're still forcing him to like get better at things that are uncomfortable, and I just think there's always going to be value in that as long as he doesn't just like get sour about, hey, Spurs, you guys are making me look terrible. Like, how can you ask me to do this? I've never done it before. I think some of his quotes actually in that Lopez article were very much like, sometimes I hate it. I feel uncomfortable, like that kind of thing. So like, maybe that's how it could really stun his growth, is if he just is like, you guys are setting me up to fail, which I could see that being a problem. But ultimately, I think it probably helps him whether it works or doesn't.
The Utah Jazz, the final team in the West.
Yeah, quick for them. I am heartened by the fact that their offense overall has been like surprisingly pretty good. And since Keyonte George has taken over as a starter, when he's on the floor, they're getting up 115.5 points per 100 possessions, which is like a top 10-ish figure league wide. Small sample, that's 5 games. And it's also, very subject to shooting luck and stuff like that. But the fact that they can play passable offense in general without Mike Conley there anymore. And the fact that you've got this point guard rotation that is either inexperienced or just not real point guards. Chris Dunn is limited. Jordan Clarkson's not a point guard. Horton Tucker is like shoehorned in as a point guard. The fact that the offense has been that good and that it's been actually like quite good with George as a starter, that's pretty exciting, because this team is still one that, other than Markkanen, I don't know. We've talked about this before. I don't know who you're like, oh, this is a keeper. And even Markkanen may not be that guy, but to have George look like someone who can run a capable offense, a dozen games into his career and 5 games in as a starter, that's something you can hang your hat on as this season. I think it winds up ultimately being pretty, especially with, if Walker Kessler is a defensive anchor, once he's healthy and back, you kind of have a theory of how you're going to operate on both ends. So that's a good place to be if you're the Jazz.
I think what's most Keyonte George is huge for them. What's most impressed me just how well Lauri Markkanen has performed without that, and you alluded to this, without that, and not just Mike Conley, but without the dependable self-creation around him. And that was touch and go for a while after the trade deadline last year. He saw some nudges downward in his efficiency. So to see him go that route and just be, oh, okay, no, last year wasn't just not even a one-off, but the all-star, there was no flukiness to it. Like this guy can play that way. And I'm so interested to see how they flesh out this team, because they're in this weird spot where is it Keyonte George? Is it Lauri Markkanen? Is it Walker Kessler? Like, is that trio the basis for everything they should be do moving forward? Like, does any one of them, like, because Lauri Markkanen, this is probably his highest end outcome is I will contend for a third team all NBA spot. Like, do they have enough to, after this season, they'll probably get another high draft to move forward and say, okay, or do they run the risk of, because they didn't tank last year early enough, like, did they get in this weird window where they're never going to be bad enough to get the generational talent that they need? I think they have the trade assets to overcome that, but it also takes a lot to use those trade assets. They have a lot of talent. And so I'm not trying to belittle their rebuild. I think they're in a very good spot long-term. I just don't know. Do you look at the trio of Lauri Markkanen, Keyonte George, and Walker Kessler as that directional trio?
Yeah, it kind of feels like, I think you could say this about everybody, they're like a 3-and-D wing away from that really being enticing. And Markkanen, I don't know how you feel about it, but Markkanen, like, the numbers are undeniable. He's right around 25 a game this year. He's shooting 40% from 3. He's taking one more 3 per game this year, despite his minutes being basically the same. Like, but I don't know. He can't be your best offensive player, can he? Like, unless you have really great pieces around him. I just don't know where I think him, Kessler, and George are very interesting. I think they tick a lot of boxes, but I'm not sure that Markkanen can be, the number one option on a really good offense. And maybe he can, I don't know. It's like, it feels, as I'm like stumbling through it, because I'm just looking at his numbers and he sure looks like a number one option. But I think would you say it's fair that like, they need another guy, maybe it's not even a 3-and-D wing, but someone that plays the 2 or the 3 that commands tons of defensive attention and can like create something with the ball, like I don't know, just more of your conventional shooting guard, small forward that's going to get you 25 a game and just like be a problem defensively. I don't know if Markkanen is good enough for the Jazz to really get where they want to go without like that type of guy next to him.
I think that's fair.
It's hypothetical.
Do we want to get into some guess of players before we get out of here? That will be, we'll focus solely on this for stat padding. Have a bunch from Rubik's Gal as well as one from Be Rich. I'll start with some of the Rubik's Gal stuff. Let me scroll up here. There were a few that were sent over. Let me just make sure I have. Yeah. Okay. So are you ready, Grant?
I'm ready.
Clue number 1. I hold the single season 3-point field goals made record for 2 NBA franchises. Both are above 200 made threes.
I have a couple guesses, but I'm not going to burn them.
Clue number 2. I hold the single season 3-point field goal percentage record for 2 NBA franchises. Both marks are above 45%.
Both? Is this, I just want to say Kyle Korver.
It is not Kyle Korver.
Okay.
Clue number 3. Not surprisingly, I led the league in 3-point percentage in one of those years.
Okay.
Clue number 4. I hold the top 3 marks for NCAA single season free throw percentage. I am also the NCAA career record holder for free throw percentage, minimum 600 free throw attempts, which I knocked down at a 91.9% clip.
Oh man, I'm getting close. Okay, keep going.
Clue number 5. I was lucky enough to play for good teams, and I made the playoffs my first 13 years in the league. My first non-playoff season was with a young team in 2020 where I was the old man.
A young playoff team in 2020 where I was the old man. I can't remember anything about 2020. That's a hard one.
Final clue number 6. Do you want it or you want to take a guess?
It's not. Joe Harris doesn't have enough with anybody. He didn't 13 years. So he made the playoffs 12 straight years. I need a better sense of the years. So he came into the league in like 08.
That would align with the timeline of 2020, 2007, I think.
And he kept making the playoffs. Oh, these are not hard, but they are hard.
I'm not going to repeat it, but think about some of the words I just said.
I can't, that's not helpful at all. You said a lot of words.
I'll read clue number 5 again then. Okay. And just think about the words.
All right.
I was lucky enough to play for good teams, and I made the playoffs my first 13 years in the league. My first non-playoff season was with a young team in 2019, 2020, where I was the old man.
The old man. Is this JJ Redick?
Yes, it's JJ Redick.
Okay.
That was a good, I didn't even put emphasis on the old man, but I was wondering if that would get it. The final clue was, and the 3-point contest in 2015 was my most embarrassing outing at the All-Star weekend because I accidentally set the unofficial record for most 2s in a 3-point contest by constantly overstepping the line.
I did not remember that. That's okay. So okay. All right. I should have got that a little earlier. I don't think I knew that Redick made the playoffs every year for.
I'm surprised. I guess just saying the 13, but that was like a big thing when he went to the Pelicans was his playoff streak.
Yeah. All right. That's a good one. I should have got that sooner, but that's a trend, generally speaking.
Rubik's Gal also has a random trivia question.
Okay.
Draymond Green is currently at 170 technical fouls over his 11-plus year career, but he looks, perhaps wistfully, in from the outside on our collection of top 10 players with the most technicals. How many of the top 10 players with the most technicals in NBA history can you guess?
Oh my God, all time? Okay, well, I'll just let's go with the obvious ones. I'm going to say Charles Barkley.
He is number 2, 329.
Rasheed Wallace.
He is number 3 at 317.
Chris Paul.
No.
So I got 2 and 3. I don't have number 1.
Number 1 is, I think, speaks to the longevity. Also, I'll say number 1 is a terrible human being.
Oh God. Well, there's so many terrible human beings. Let's see. Who does Dan really not like? Karl Malone?
Correct. That is correct. 332. Great guess.
Well, longevity and terrible human being. You zeroed me right in there. So I got 1, 2, and 3. I don't care what else happens from now on. Who else gets a lot of text?
I'll try and give you hints to see if you can get the next 6.
Okay. I'd love it.
His namesake is on the Warriors. Number 4.
His namesake is on the Warriors. Number 4. Draymond Green. That's not going to get me anything.
Are you serious?
I can't. His namesake, Gary Payton?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
250 he had. Number 5, creatively colored hair.
Dennis Rodman.
Correct. Number 6, I think, is going to be a little bit of a shocker. This is going to be you cried when they retired.
I did. Cried when they retired. Well, there's a few. Steve Nash,
No.
Manu Ginobili,
No.
Tim Duncan.
No.
Who else?
You said it on this I don't know if you said you cried, but you couldn't handle when they retired.
Dirk.
Yes, number 6 at
Wow,
199.
I'm really surprised by that.
Number 7, he's from the Go New York, Go era.
I'm going to confess something that will embarrass me in this podcast. I don't know what the Go New York, Go era is.
I think Nobody Beats the Wiz wrote it. Go look that up. New York Knicks, Nobody Beats the Wiz. So he played for the Knicks, and the other clue I'll give you is Charles Oakley.
Is it Charles Oakley?
No.
He was going to be one of my guesses, actually. Anthony Mason, John Starks.
Correct. Anthony Mason, 192, number 7. This number 8 is an active player. Based on his facial expressions alone, you would understand why he is on this list. And also, he has played for a bunch of teams in the past few years.
His facial expressions.
He gets mad, it seems like, very easily.
He gets mad very easily. I'm not going to get that. Can I guess?
He's teamed up with James Harden 3 times.
Teamed up? Russ?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Where's Luka? Has he cracked the top 10 yet?
Nope, not on the top 10. So number 9, what would be a good one? Superman.
Dwight Howard.
Correct. That's number 9. And number 10, Uncut Gems.
Kevin Garnett.
Correct.
Oh, let's see. Okay, yeah, that is kind of the usual suspects as you think back on that whole list.
Dirk Nowitzki being 6.
He stands out. So that Chris Paul was not on there. Is that right?
Correct. He was not on there.
Interesting.
How about those clues on the spot?
Really good. Yeah, those were excellent clues, and they were short too. So it wasn't. So I have a Rubik's Gal guess for you. You ready for that one?
No, I've been told that I'm not going to get it. So
I think we have a litany of clues, and I got 3 variants to choose from to try to get you the correct answer. So I'm going to pull from almost all of them. The impetus for this was a very interesting episode that both she and I really remembered very well. So I don't know. I'm just stalling right now because I'm trying to think what the best first clue to give you. All right. So I am a 5-time NBA champ, and my jersey was retired by the Boston Celtics. Everybody's been retired by the Boston Celtics. Everybody's got 5 championships there. I was possibly the preeminent 6th man of my time, regularly contributing 10 plus points a game and nearly 5 rebounds in both the regular season and the playoffs.
What was that stat?
Basically a great 6th man of his time, which is like a giveaway that we're getting pretty old timey here.
Is Robert Parrish a 6th man?
No.
Okay.
We're going before that. All right. Let's see. As a coach. Oh, he's a coach too. I loved this. You might just get it here. I loved bringing a Bud Light to post-game pressers. The league eventually banned me from doing this in 2007. How rude. I was also
Red
known.
Holtzman?
What's that?
Red Holtzman?
No. I was also known to have smoked weed with my players.
Oh, Don Nelson?
You got it. Okay, good job. We have to go to the reason that this was became a guess a player / guess a coach. There's so many good clues that I could. Would you have gotten it on my first number 1 pick became alienated with my insistence on playing him at center instead of power forward? He forced his way off the team. If he had listened to me and stayed with the team, he would have implemented the first small ball lineup essentially.
No,
that's okay. That's Chris Webber getting halfway through his rookie year being like, I hate this coach. So the reason we were discussing this is, did you know that Rule 3, Section 1A of the official NBA rulebook allows a player to continue playing even after he has 6 fouls? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So the reason that came up is there was a game in, I forget the year now, a Warriors game. It was the last game of the season, Steph Curry's rookie year. The Warriors have like 8 healthy guys. A couple guys get hurt. 1 fouls out. Devin George is the last like guy on the floor, commits his 6th foul, has to go to the bench because the refs don't know that rule. The Warriors have one injured guy on the bench, Stephen Hunter, comes back in the game. He can't move. So he comes back out or commits a foul or something. I can't remember all the details as I'm trying to blow through it. But basically, Don Nelson knows the rule that if you foul out, you can still play if there are no healthy people on the bench. The other team just gets an extra technical free throw after every personal foul beyond number 6. So the Warriors finished a game with, I think, multiple guys having 6 fouls, and they beat the Blazers, who were like a 50-win team, and Steph Curry had a 40-point game as a rookie, the last game of the year. It was like one of the weirdest. Wow. It was also Don Nelson's last game.
I did not know any of that.
Yeah. But guess what? You got it, because the Bud Light and smoking weed with his players.
The smoking weed one, I was like, oh.
Got you where you needed to be. Rubik's Gal did so much research on this. Like, I wish I could convey how impressed I am, but you know, it all's well that ends well because you got it. So good job by you.
There's another one here for you.
Hit it.
Clue number 1, on November 16th, 2023, in the OKC at Golden State Warriors game, Isaiah Joe shot the lights out of the building, going 7 for 7 from 3-point range, those being the only field goals he attempted. Interestingly enough, the record for most threes without a miss stands at 9 and is shared by Ben Gordon, who understandably did it twice. He shot more than 40% from 3 in 7 of his first 8 seasons. And Latrell Sprewell. What in parentheticals? But both Sprewell and Gordon missed at least one 2-point shot. So who was the other player to hit that many threes, I guess, without the miss?
Okay, I'm going to guess Anthony Morrow.
That is not correct. That's a great guess, but that's not correct.
I felt really good about that guess based on the clues.
Clue number 2, the actual record holder for most threes with no missed field goals, 3s or 2s, is me. Back in January 1997 against a helpless Raptor squad, I attempted 8 shots, all 3s, and made all 8. Furthermore, I also made both of my free throws. I don't think that's going to help.
97. Oh, is it Morris Peterson?
It is not. Another great guess, though.
Is it Del Curry? He was done by then. Okay.
It was Clue number 3. I played 17 seasons in the NBA and made the playoffs in 15 of them. I hold the distinction of having played the 3rd most playoff games without a ring. The only guys with more playoff games without a ring are John Stockton and Karl Malone.
Oh, my God. And this guy was 9 for 9 from 3 in a game with no... Tons of playoff.
Oh, he was 8 for 8. Excuse me.
8 for 8. Tons of playoff games. And he did the 8 for 8 in 97?
Correct.
All right. I need another clue.
Clue number 4. I played for only 4 teams and made it to the NBA Finals 3 times with 3 different teams, including Magic Johnson's 1991 Lakers squad.
Okay. So I was on the 91 Lakers, but played for other teams and won championships with other teams. I should get this right now. Oh, God.
Made it to the NBA Finals with 3 different teams.
Okay. 91 Lakers. I don't know why. Okay, I need another one.
Clue 5. By now, you've decided I'm a shooting guard, right? Wrong. I was the best 3-point shooting big through the 90s, long before Kevin Garnett even got to the NBA. I hit a game-winning 3 in the 1991 NBA Finals.
Is this Sam Perkins?
It is Sam Perkins. Second to last clue. I never would have got this. Number 6 was I was part of the greatest draft in NBA history, sandwiched between Jordan and Barkley.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I forgot about that. That's a good one. Okay, Sam Perkins. I think he's the original Big Smooth. I think that was the nickname. Someone will have to fact check me on that one. All right. You got anything else, or do you want some? Well,
I do have. And we're going to end it after this, I believe. You have to take a stop. Be Rich has one for you. You ready?
I'm ready to overthink.
Clue number 1. I am burgeoning superstar Tyrese Halliburton's older cousin.
Oh, I don't know that.
Clue number 2, drafted 10th in 1994. I had a 14-year career spanning 5 teams, never playing for a team geographically north of Charlotte.
10th in 94. Oh my God. I had the whole set of the first round of that draft in my basketball card collection. Is that, well, I would ask you a bunch of questions, but you don't have this information. Okay, keep going.
Clue number 3, a 3-time All-Star. I led the league in steals in 1999, 2000, my best season, in which I made second team All-Defense, third team All-NBA.
Is this Eddie Jones?
It is Eddie Jones. Nice job.
I'm glad I didn't overthink that one. I'll just say that. That's one I should have gotten for sooner.
The two final clues were my trade to Charlotte in early 99 opened up starting minutes for a future Hall of Famer and kickstarted a dynasty.
Yeah.
And then the final clue, my career net rating +8 is better than aforementioned Hall of Famer +5, primarily because that guy hung on a few too many seasons jacking up shots for a losing team. Your friend Bill still jokingly contends the Lakers would have been better off keeping me instead of playing Kobe.
Yeah, I definitely would have got it. Would have got it by that one. There have been a lot. Okay, well now I know not to have to look out for Eddie Jones anymore. Now that we've got that off the list.
This was great. Before you take us out, we want to wish everybody a happy, healthy, safe Thanksgiving. We're hoping that you're spending it eating lots of food and just chilling if you celebrate it. But Grant, are you ready to take us out of here?
I am. Thanks everyone for contributing, for listening, for watching, for being a part of the community. If you are not a part of that, you can do so by following us on all our socials at HardwoodKnocks, at Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. It's just at HardwoodKnocks without the underscore, just about everywhere else. Join the Discord, buy the merch, tell your friends. You can, and by the way, if you want to know how to do that stuff, the merch, the Discord, links in the YouTube and podcast description. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, have a fantastic holiday, and eat cranberry sauce only out of the can because that is superior means of consumption. Do not eat the kind that is not in a weird cylindrical shape with lines on it, because why would you do that? And as always, we close with a shout out to the one and only Frank Ntilikina and an apology to Jared Allen.